Thanks everybody for coming out to this class today. My name's John Bison, and I will be teaching this LNT awareness course on wintertime activities. Now that we've Now that we've arrived safely, now that we've established basic rapport, I would like to start talking about the first of the 7 principles of LNT. Plan ahead. It sounds like y'all had a pretty easy flight over here, but for those of us that had to drive, you want to be aware of the road conditions that you're driving on in the mud seasons, which are when it just starts to snow and you can still travel on normal routes, and also when snow is melting out and you're trying to get back to those trailheads in the spring. You want to make sure that you have adequate equipment on your vehicle, such as, proper tires, so that you don't get stuck and end up ripping up the road trying to get to where you want to go. So some of those things to carry with you are a shovel if you get stuck, blanket for when you get cold and emergency purposes, ice scraper in case weather changes inclemently, and lots of snacks for if you get stuck back in the back country or even in the front country somewhere that you weren't planning for. So the rest of this course we're going to spend snowshoeing on this beautiful trail here, and we'll learn the more principles down the road. You guys can probably fly. Here we are at the beginning of our course at the trailhead, and you'll see that there is this designated trail here, which is very important even in the wintertime when it seems like you could go jumping around anywhere in the snow. You still want to stick to those designated trails that have been mapped out and will be packed in for the winter. If you start making trails off in any direction, people won't know, they could get lost. And it's also important to the program managers of specific areas in state parks and Nordic ski areas where they want you to be on these designated trails so that you're not impacting the environment and the wildlife, even in the winter when you may not think about it as much. So this is very important. Even along the trail, there could be underground waterways that are trickling through, that there's specific spots and rates, and those are crucial to ecosystems that you or biomes that you might not even see underneath the snow. And this also comes back to wildlife, where you don't want to be just frolicking around in these winter months where wildlife could be potentially harmed from your impact, which we'll talk about later. Let's continue down the trail, class. Oh, hey, look at this. This is a perfect example of the third principle of leave no trace, which is dispose of waste properly. So here in the winter months, when everything's white, any little bit of trash sticks out profoundly. And so you can minimize your impacts by packing out your waste on your own backpack, in your pockets, and then also getting rid of trash from other people. Sometimes you have to get creative on how to get rid of it, but we're going to get rid of this waste. And that also brings us to waste in forms of human waste. Peeing and pooping is generally accepted in the wintertime months as long as you're within that 200 feet barrier of the trail, and regardless of however many feet it is, you want it to do it out of sight of people who are recreating, so that's not an eyesore to them. In terms of pooping, if you can, hold it. If you can turn around at that moment and go back to the trailhead, but if not, again, It's generally accepted to do it as long as you're out of sight of other people and just dig as deep as you can down into the snow. And hopefully all the snow melt will bring it back into the system. The fourth principle of LNT, leave what you find, is not always the easiest to point out, but I'll leave it up to you guys to let me know when you think you see something that could be picked up, but should probably be. Oh, perfect example. I'm glad you birds decided to pick this out as something that you could leave behind. In the winter months, it's especially important to leave any bit of green vegetation that's sticking out for animals that will be feeding on this in the winter time. It might look nice and it might be different to you because it's green sticking out of the snow, but take a picture, don't rip it off and take it home with you, because this could be a very important food source for a variety of animals. Let's continue this hike. So, going along with principle 4, leave what you find, there's also some things in the winter months that you don't want to leave behind that could be potentially harmful to species or children and just to the aesthetic values of walking around the snow. Things like igloos. If you see something like this, you don't want it there. Make sure nothing's inside. Get rid of it. And also, class, if you can, remove objects throughout the trail to make it easier for trail crews. Here, class, is a campfire left in the snow. Do you think this would be related to leave no trace in some aspect? I completely agree. Here's a perfect example of the 5th principle of leave no trace: reducing campfire impacts. Campfire impacts in the winter won't necessarily lead to further problems such as wildfires, but they do leave a scar in the snow that's not pleasing for other visitors to see. And so a very simple thing you can do is kick some snow back over the fire and blend in the environment so that you don't leave a divot or further encourage campfire use in this spot. Campfires during winter recreation are not very common. However, in emergency situations, if you're in the backcountry, you should be prepared to have the tools to start something like a campfire. And if you were doing that the most responsible way in LNT, you would bring some sort of lid or aluminum foil to have your fire on that you can contain when you're done and pack it out. It's just not something that you need to do for fun, but it should only be done for warming purposes, while camping, or emergency situations. And if you have to do it, just clean up afterwards and make it look like it was never there. Look, class, a bear! This brings us to principle number 6, respect wildlife, which is very important in the wintertime months. Animals such as Smokey the black bear here have extra needs in the wintertime as they are conserving energy to get them through the hard months where food is not readily found, and in order to get to those foods it takes a lot more effort. So if we as recreationalists are traveling around in the forest and you see an animal such as a bear or a deer, you want to give them the space that they feel comfortable with and not approach them or intimidate them or talk to them, because you want those animals to continue the path that they're going on so that they do not become spooked and have to spend extra energy running away from us, which could be detrimental to their survival through the winter if this happens very regularly. Hello class, we have one more topic to talk about, but we are almost at the trailhead. Hopefully we'll get there. Oh look, a fat bike user. This brings us to topic number 7. Step 7 of LNT is to consider other users. Here's a perfect example of another user while we snowshoe. He's on a fat bike, which is equipped to travel over snow also. So it's easier for us to step off the trail. And so we'll step aside, let the other users travel.
Oh, dude.
Okay, that's good. Just stop. Okay, birds. I can see you've learned enough for today. I hope you take this information and take it to continually further your education.